This is the 3D Viewmaster classic tale, Robinson Crusoe, based on the book by Daniel Defoe. This is my personal log, a story of my life as a sailor and of the shipwreck that left me stranded on a desert island for more than 27 years. Robinson Crusoe. Viewmaster Reel 1. Picture 1. I was born in 1632 in the city of York. My father wanted me to study law. I wanted to sail the seas, to see new places and meet new people. I spent my spare time strolling about the port of Hull, visiting with fishermen and dreaming of high adventures in far-off lands. Picture 2. Then one day I met a friend who was on his way to London aboard his father's schooner. He invited me to sail with him. I accepted his offer immediately. On the first day of September 1651, the blackest day of my life, I secretly ran away from my parents' home. Picture 3. That first voyage to London nearly ended in shipwreck. Our fragile schooner was struck by a violent storm. I should have taken it as a warning from heaven. But when the storm subsided, my longing for adventure got the better of me. I went to sea again. I made at least a dozen trips, finally arriving on the east coast of South America. Picture 4. On September 1, 1659, 8 years to the day after I had sailed from Hull, I was headed toward Africa on a merchant ship. After a few days, we were caught in a terrible storm. I never seen such a storm in all my days at sea. Our mainmast snapped in two like a twig, and all our sails were torn to shreds. At the height of the storm, a sailor shouted, "Land!" And at that exact moment, the ship struck a reef. In panic, the crew jumped into the lifeboat, but a great mountain-like wave capsized us. I managed to surface. I swam for all I was worth. The tide eventually bore me to a sandy beach. I was the sole survivor. Picture 5. I cannot fully explain how I felt when I found myself safe, but alone on those unknown shores. Joy mixed with sorrow as I fell to my knees and thanked God for saving me. Then I prayed for my comrades who had drowned. Picture 6. Saved. Yes, I had been saved. But what a situation! Hungry and exhausted, defenseless on a small island, which I reckoned at the time was probably inhabited by cannibals and all manner of wild animals. My only weapon was a sword, the one I found at water's edge. Since night was falling, I cut myself a club and then climbed up a tall tree, stretching myself out on twin branches. I went to sleep almost immediately. Picture 7. On waking, I was pleasantly surprised to observe that the tide had freed the ship from the reef. It had been carried closer to shore and was now in shallow water. The weather was calm and I was fully rested, so I decided to swim to the ship and salvage whatever the storm had spared. Imagine my joy when I found a small dog between decks. I had reason again to thank God, this time for sending me a companion. Viewmaster Reel 2. Picture 1. The ship was half in and half out of the water. It listed badly. I found what I needed, however: food, tools and implements, arms and ammunition. It was mine for the taking. All I had to do was get it back safely to land, using ropes and planks. I built a tiny raft on which I heaped the things I would need the most. I reached shore in a matter of minutes. I unloaded my precious cargo, and I was able to make several more salvage trips that same afternoon before the ship broke up. Picture 2. Now I had to find shelter for myself and my provisions. Luck was still with me. I discovered a cave. When I fortified the entrance, I felt secure and very much at home. Expeditions to the island's interior had convinced me it was uninhabited. There were many edible plants and fruits close at hand and herds of wild goats to supply me with fresh meat. Picture 3. How did I manage to record the passing of time? I nailed a board to a tree trunk. On it I lettered the date of my arrival, 30th September 1659. I cut a notch in it each day, with a longer notch for Sundays and the first day of each month. I cannot say I was unhappy on my island, but I was lonely. Yes, I had a dog, also 2 cats and a parrot, but they failed to satisfy my need for human company. Picture 4. And yet, I was frightened when I first realized the presence of another human on the island. It happened one day as I was walking on the beach. I saw clearly the imprint of a man's foot. I remained constantly on guard after that. Then one day I saw 5 canoes loaded with savages landing on my island. I never saw such bloodthirsty looking creatures. All day and all night they feasted, caroused and fought among themselves. Their hideous cries rang in my ears until dawn. Picture 5. A year and a half after that frightening discovery, I saw about 30 savages land with several prisoners. One of them managed to escape. He ran toward me. The tribe of savages ran after him. When they reached my position, I jumped from my shelter, placing myself between the fellow and his enemies. I lifted my muzzle loader to my shoulder and fired a shot into the air. This routed his pursuers. Picture 6. Terrified by my gunfire, the fugitive crawled to me and placed my foot on his neck. It was his way of showing gratitude. Picture 7. Since this event took place on a Friday, I named the young man Friday. I soon taught him to speak English and to worship God. Friday was a good pupil. He later became my good and loyal friend. I have never had any reason to distrust him, nor found any cause since to regret the day I saved Friday's life. Viewmaster Reel 3, Picture 1. More years passed and I used them to increase our food supply. I sowed the seeds I'd saved from the wreck and was able to harvest cereal and vegetable crops. I also managed to tame several wild goats. In short, Friday and I had nearly everything we wanted. One morning, I was awakened by a shout from Friday. "Master! Master!" he yelled, pointing out to sea. "There! Coming! There! Coming!" I rushed to my hillside sentry post, looked through my telescope and saw a brigantine at anchor. A long boat was coming ashore. Picture 2. 11 men landed. I thought I could recognize Englishmen among them. 3 of them were officers and obviously in distress. They were tied together and were being mistreated by the other men, no doubt mutineers. planning either to kill them outright or to leave them marooned in this remote spot. Picture 3. The mutineers left the 3 officers to be guarded by the 3 drunken men and scattered around the island. I took this opportunity to creep closer to the prisoners. "Hello," I whispered. "Are you English?" They nodded, and I assured them that I was too. Then I offered them a proposition, one I knew they could not refuse. "If you agree to take me back to England, I will help you deal with the villains who brought you here." They readily agreed. With Friday's help, I had little difficulty in overcoming the 3 guards. Picture 4. I then gave the officers guns. The tropical heat and the alcohol the guards had consumed worked to our advantage. We quickly seized the remaining mutineers. But the fight wasn't over. Far from it, it had just begun. Picture 5. The decisive moment came when 10 of the 26 sailors still on board the brigantine came ashore to help their comrades. Although the odds were 5 against 10, we soon had the better of these rebel reinforcements. The tide of battle turned in our favor when Friday put a torch to a powder barrel. Picture 6. With the land battle won, we then had to recapture the brigantine. The captain himself succeeded in doing this, using the support of the sailors who had stayed loyal to him. 7 cannon shots announced his success. The surviving rebels were found guilty of mutiny. They were sentenced to be marooned on the island. I left them my guns, my tools and implements, and my food supplies. A dinghy carried me out to the ship with my friend Friday, my dog, my cats, and my parrot. Picture 7. And thus, on the 19th day of December 1686, I finally left the island where I had lived fairly happily for 27 years, 2 months and 19 days. I had been away from the place of my birth 35 years. My parents had died. But Friday is still with me, and I'm enjoying my old age, using it to write my memories. If you liked this abbreviated account of my adventures on the island of despair, you'll enjoy the complete story of my travels, of my later trips to Africa and China. Just drop by the nearest public library and ask for a copy of Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. Are you interested in tales of piracy? Read Kidnapped and Treasure Island, 2 exciting books by Robert Louis Stevenson. We want to add new videos every day, so please subscribe to our channel.
And if you had fun, thumbs up.